Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, Madhya-Lila chapter 25. The residents of Varanasi become Vaishnavas. Text 34. Shruti Purana Kahe Krishnera Chet Shakti Vilasa Taha Nahi Mani Pandita Kare Upahasa. Shruti Purana kahe Krishner Chit Shakti Vilas.
Shruti Purana kahe Krishna Chit Shakti Vilas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
Shruti Purana kahe Krishner Chit Shakti Vilas.
Shruti Purana kahe Krishna Chit Shakti Vilas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
Shruti Purana kahe Krishner Chit Shakti Vilas.
Shruti Purana kahe Krishna Chit Shakti Vilas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
Taha nahi mane pandit kare upahas.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
तथा नहीं मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नाहि मानि पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नाहि माने पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
Mataji.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नहीं मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नहीं मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
श्रुति पुराण कहे कृष्ण चित्त शक्ति विलास.
ताहा नहीं मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
ताहा नाही मानी पंडित करे उपहास.
Shruti Purana kahe.
श्रुति पुराण कहे.
The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Puranas confirm Krishnera of Lord Krishna, Chit Shakti Vilas, activities of spiritual potencies, Taha Nahi Mani, not accepting that, Pandita Kare Upahas, so-called scholars play jokes without perfect understanding. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra and the Puranas all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. Purport. In the Vedic literatures, including the Puranas, there are full descriptions of the spiritual potency of Krishna. All the pastimes of the Lord are eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, just as the form of Krishna himself is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Satchidananda Vigraha. Unintelligent people with a poor fund of knowledge compare their temporary bodies to the spiritual body of Krishna, and by such foolishness they try to understand Krishna as one of them. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 11, points out that foolish people think of Krishna as one of them. Not understanding his spiritual potency, they simply decry the personal form of the absolute truth. Foolishly thinking of themselves as jnanis, cognizant of the complete truth. They cannot understand that just as the material energy of the Lord has a variety of activities, the spiritual energy has variety also. They consider activities in devotional service the same as activities in material consciousness. Under such a wrong impression, they sometimes dare joke about the spiritual activities of the Lord and His devotional service. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Gutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be back in Sri Radha Landaneshwar Temple after 1 year. And it's also Sunday morning, so nice to see so many of you here this morning. The pastime that is currently being discussed here is from the Madhya-Lila of the Caitanya-caritamrta, chapter 25. The residents of Varanasi become Vaishnavas. Text number 34. We'll repeat the translation. Please repeat after me. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Puranas all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his travels has reached Varanasi, which is the headquarters, the capital city of the Mayavadis. He has been criticized severely by the Mayavadi sannyasis because he chants and dances with the common population. He doesn't seem to be engaging in the activities that the Mayavadi sannyasis consider the duties of a sannyasi, which is to study the Vedanta Sutra, to perform severe austerities, and to avoid what the Mayavadi sannyasis consider to be sentimental activities, like chanting the names of Krishna in Sankirtan, especially along with other ordinary common folk. So the Mayavadi sannyasis were considering him to be a sentimentalist and someone who is not following the rules and the dharma of a sannyasi. Particularly since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had accepted the order of sannyas, he had taken the sannyas diksha from Srila Keshava Bharati, who was from the Bharati Sampradaya, which is one of the sampradayas of the Shankara school, which means the impersonalist school. So they considered that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should therefore conform to the activities and the duties of sannyasis from their line. But apparently, from their point of view, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was deviating. Some of the people in Varanasi, specifically those who were the associates and devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, didn't like it at all. Particularly one of them, who was a Maharashtriya Brahmana, he was so pained to hear this criticism that he resolved to settle it once and for all. And he invited these sannyasis, led by the chief Mayavadi sannyasi of Varanasi, whose name was Prakashananda Saraswati. He invited them to his house for prasadam. And he also invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Mahaprabhu received this invitation from this Brahmana, he had just been hearing from his other devotees narrations of how the Mayavadi sannyasis had been criticizing him in Varanasi. So the Brahmana's invitation came just at the perfect time. And Mahaprabhu wanted to deliver these Mayavadi sannyasis as well. Because after all, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He is none other than Sri Krishna, who has come in the guise of a devotee. He has taken the sannyas order of life to preach Krishna consciousness and to bring everyone on the path of pure devotional service to Krishna. In Jagannath Puri, in Navadvip, and all over during his travels, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had brought unlimited number of people into the fold of ecstatic devotional service to Krishna by the process of chanting the holy names of Krishna, particularly the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But this one large group had still escaped his net of mercy, and that was the Mayavadi sannyasis. So he thought, now the time has come for me to deliver them, because my devotees have glorified me as the most munificent, the most merciful incarnation of all. And therefore the time has come now for me to live up to that expectation. I have delivered everyone, but these Mayavadis have escaped. So now I should capture them in the net of pure love of Krishna. So with this resolve in his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the invitation of this Brahmana. At that session, he took a very humble position, and the Mayavadi sannyasis were very impressed with the appearance and the humility of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He sat in a little corner at a lower level, at the place where the feet were washed before entering into the premises. In a very gentle way, Prakashananda Saraswati rose from his seat, being attracted by the effulgence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he guided him, escorted him to sit in their midst. And he did this seva for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally. And because of this little personal seva rendered to Mahaprabhu, because of that little affection and humility shown with respect to Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu's mercy would very soon overflow his heart and also the heart of all his associates. And then the Mayavadi sannyasis questioned Mahaprabhu about what they considered to be his improper actions. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained, and explained so convincingly with philosophical explanations that they were all convinced, and they all became devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of Lord Krishna. So that caused a sensation in Varanasi. Formerly, these same sannyasis had been criticizing Mahaprabhu badly, and now they all became his followers. And they accepted a philosophy that seemed to be so much at variance with what they were espousing earlier. So in this series of verses, we hear one of the chief associates and disciples of Prakashananda Saraswati, who was also as learned as Prakashananda Saraswati himself, glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, glorifying the process of devotional service and the conception of Krishna consciousness and the understanding of the Vedanta Sutra as taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, this is supreme, this is the correct philosophy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained things so clearly and so nicely. On the other hand, the philosophy that we have been following is actually quite wrong. It's just a jugglery of words. It appears to be so sophisticated and so intellectual, but actually it's full of defects, it's full of faults. So in the course of decrying the philosophy that he himself was following earlier, he mentions this, he speaks this verse. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra and the Puranas all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. In other words, what he's saying is that to believe in the impersonal conception of the Lord is foolishness. And to believe in the personal descriptions and activities of the Lord is a sign of good intelligence. It is a sign of good spiritual knowledge, of good spiritual realization. And that one who cannot accept that the Lord is a person automatically, foolishly starts making fun of the Lord's transcendental activities. And I actually have experience of this. I have narrated this sometimes in the past, but many years ago, as a new devotee, I was out to distribute Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam on the streets in a particular city in eastern India. And I happened to see this auditorium where the lecture by a very famous Mayavadi sannyasi had been organized. And I had of course read what Srila Prabhupada had said about Mayavadis. But still I was curious to know what he would say and why it was that Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were so severe in their criticism. So I went in anyway and sat down. It was an air-conditioned auditorium. The auditorium was full. And he was on the auditorium and he was on the stage pacing up and down. He wasn't seated on a chair or an asana like this, and neither was he standing at one place and speaking. He had a handheld mic and he was walking back and forth and back and forth. And in the course of discussion, he was speaking about, the topic by the way was, you are the whole. The whole meaning W-H-O-L-E. Right? That means you are the complete whole. In other words, what he wanted to say was, you are God. Yes, you are the whole. So that was the topic of the lecture. And he was speaking quite energetically about how it is that we are the whole. And then he said, there are some people, and now I can't quote verbatim because it was almost 28 years back or 30 years back, something like that. So anyway, but I do remember this very graphically, his movements, and his one part that I remember graphically was, he said, there are some people who believe in Vaikuntha, that there is a spiritual world where there is God who engages all kinds of in all kinds of activities. But I ask you, he said, what would they be doing there? And he began to speak in a rather, shall we say, not just impolite way, but an insulting way. And he was also mocking, and he was actually acting it out. Now I can't do that because I'm not such a good actor, and also because I'm seated on the Vyasasana. So to preserve the dignity of the Vyasasana, and because we're in front of their lordships in the temple, I will try to make the depiction as dignified as possible. But still I have to maintain the flavor of what he said, to give you an idea. So he said, you go to the spiritual world and you engage in activities with God. What would you do? You will be sitting in front of God. God will be looking at your face. You will be looking at God's face, and you will keep on looking at each other's face. And then what will you do after that? He said a few more colorful things that were quite offensive, which I will not repeat. So he said, you just sit and face each other. So what do you do then? So he made a joke of it, the whole thing, and there were a few peals of laughter from some people in the audience. And so that was it. That was more than I could take. I walked out of the thing. Then I understood. So when he mentions here that Kare Upahas, they make fun of the personality of God and of his transcendental activities because they don't understand these things. I was reminded of this incident. It's actually like that because these sannyasis themselves in Varanasi were also doing the very same thing. So that sannyasi was also following in the footsteps of these people. He was from a similar sampradaya. He was from the Saraswati sampradaya, one of the sampradayas following Shankaracharya. So the point is that they just cannot, with their limited understanding and realization of spiritual life, imagine that there is a spiritual world full of variegatedness, full of variety, where the Supreme Lord exists as a person, where there are many other devotees who live along with him, and they have their paraphernalia, and they engage in transcendental activities that are full of bliss, that are eternal, full of knowledge. There is no trace of material contamination in that abode. And therefore the activities of the Lord and his devotees are 100% pure and spiritual. As is mentioned here, Krishna Chit Shakti Vilas. Chit Shakti means the spiritual potency. Vilas means enjoyment. So the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees in the spiritual world are manifestations of the Chit Shakti, the spiritual potency. They are not manifestations of the Maya potency that we find in this world, the Mahamaya Shakti of Krishna. The activities that we do are under the domain or jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature, which is under the control of Mahamaya. So we are under illusion. Our activities cannot be called pastimes or Leela. But in the spiritual world, all the activities are Leela or pastimes. There is no question of the material law of karma or the three modes of material nature influencing those activities in any way. So this is the Mayavad understanding. But because it comes across so frequently in our books, in the Caitanya-caritamrta, in Prabhupada's purports, in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita, in his lectures, and since most spiritualists in the world, those who are not Vaishnava, have either willfully or by default a Mayavad understanding of spirituality. So it is important for us to know what exactly this Mayavadi philosophy is. Now it is a big subject, and these Mayavadis, sannyasis, philosophers, they have written tomes and tomes of books, of literature, and they are extremely intelligent and very incisive in their analysis. They split words, they analyze things, the word jugglery can be bewildering even for an advanced devotee. And therefore Mahaprabhu has cautioned, Mayavadi bhashya shunile hoy sarvanash. That if one hears this Mayavad philosophy, then one's devotion will be ruined. One's spiritual consciousness will be ruined. So it's so important for us to know what exactly this Mayavad philosophy is. So let me try to summarize the whole Mayavad philosophy for you in 4 points. Now, my request to you is to know what these 4 points are, and after this class, when you go back to your respective places, whether it's the ashram or you live in a home outside, you tell this to others. Don't tell them that this is right. Tell them this is the wrong philosophy. This is what the Mayavadis say. And then I'll take these 4 points and try to briefly counter them, because a very lengthy exposition of Mayavad and a lengthy countering of that philosophy will take a lot of time. Okay, so point number 1 in Mayavad philosophy is actually the word Mayavad itself means philosophy of Maya. So we don't need to use the word philosophy after Mayavad. But just to make everybody understand that it is a philosophy, we use the word Mayavad philosophy. Because the very word Vad means philosophy or doctrine or argument. And Maya means illusion. Maya, that which is not. So Mayavad is the philosophy of illusion. In what way? Let's see. So point number 1 of Mayavad is that the absolute truth is spiritual light, that is impersonal, unlimited, devoid of qualities and devoid of activities. Number 1. Number 2, in other words, they don't believe that the absolute truth has any form or is a person. They only believe in that impersonal light, spiritual light that is all pervading. Number 2, they say that impersonal Brahman, that supreme absolute truth, gets fragmented and appears, although it remains there, what is remaining there as Brahman remains there, but the living entities in this world, in the material world, are actually fragmented from that original Brahman. They are directly the Brahman, the Supreme Brahman. In other words, they say the living entities are God. But they are covered over by illusion, by Maya, and therefore they do not understand that they are God. Once that illusion is removed by the process of knowledge and meditation and austerity, then there is no individuality left anymore. And one merges back into the Brahman from which one was before. So point number 2 means that all the living entities are God. What was the first point? That God is impersonal spiritual light, devoid of qualities, devoid of attributes, devoid of activities, and He is unlimited. Point number 1. Point number 2, that God, that impersonal spiritual light, appears within this world. Actually, all the living entities here are also that same God. But under the influence of Maya or illusion, they have forgotten their own Godhood, their wholeness, that they are also whole. And when they remove that illusion by following the process of cultivation of knowledge, speculative knowledge, etc., then they realize they are God. And they are Brahman once again. So the individuality is extinguished. They say that individuality of the living entities is an illusion. You and I are individuals, we understand that. But the Mayavadis say our individuality is an illusion. There is no such thing as individuality. We are all one. We are all that Supreme Brahman. But we have forgotten that. We are under illusion. So that's point number 2. Point number 3. They say Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. They say the absolute truth, the spiritual light Brahman is the only truth. Everything else is illusion. This material world, Jagat, is mithya, is false, it's illusory. Not only is your individuality and my individuality illusory, the very world in which we stay, this whole material world, is an illusion. It doesn't exist. And the 4th point, they say that when that Supreme Brahman descends into this world as an avatar, like Krishna or Ram or Narasimha, etc., the body of that avatar is made of material elements, made of Maya. the descent of the Supreme Brahman into this world as an avatar is also under the jurisdiction of Maya. So they say, in effect, that the body of Krishna, the body of Ram, of Narasimhadeva is material just like our bodies are material. So these are the four tenets, the main tenets of Mayavad. So it is the philosophy that says that there is illusion. What illusion in what way? Number one, that the living entities are under the illusion that they are not God, that they are separate individuals. So they are under illusion, number one. Number two, the material world is Maya, is illusion. And number three, the avatars have a body that is made of Maya, of illusion. So therefore it is called Mayavad. Okay? So now let's briefly try to refute it. Let's take the first point. What was the first point? The Supreme Absolute Truth is impersonal spiritual light. That is formless, without qualities, without activities, and is unlimited. Right? Now, of course, that doesn't, it is not borne out by logic. Let's give some simple logic. Now we see that in this world there is form. You have form, I have form, this has form. There is form everywhere. The Supreme Absolute Truth is that from whom everything emanates. Therefore the Supreme Absolute Truth must have within itself everything that exists in its emanations. So we are all the emanations from the Supreme Absolute Truth. If we have form, the Supreme Absolute Truth must also have form. Now the counter argument to that may be that, well, there's also formlessness that we see here in this world. The air is formless. The air is also coming from the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore the Lord is formless. So what is our counter to that? Our counter is yes, because there is form and there is formlessness, both exist in this world, therefore both must coexist in the Supreme Absolute Truth. So the Lord has a form and He also has a formless aspect simultaneously. Now, which of the two is superior? The person, the form is superior, because it is only from the person that the impersonal can emanate. Behind the impersonal there is always a person. I give this example often, that when we say the government has taken such a decision, what we mean is that certain persons in the government have taken that decision. The government is an impersonal term, but actually it's people who are behind the impersonal thing. The source of that impersonal word government are some people, some ministers, some bureaucrats, some officials, and they are the ones who take the decision. It's not some abstract entity called government that takes decisions. There are people taking decisions. So the personality is always superior to the formless aspect. Furthermore, scriptures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and great acharyas like Brahma in the Brahma Samhita explain and describe the beauty of Sri Krishna's form, and they also describe it as being spiritual. Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a form that is spiritual, that is made of eternity, knowledge and bliss. So the Mayavadis, they only have an understanding of the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Brahman, but they do not have any understanding of a higher reality that is spiritual, that has a form. Okay, so that is regarding the first point. What was the second point? That the living entities in this world are actually God, but they have forgotten that because they are under the influence of illusion of Maya. And liberation means to overcome that illusion by jnana, by meditation and so on. And then you extinguish your individuality, which didn't exist in the first place, and you become Brahman once again. So how does one refute that? Any refutation? Yes.
We can't be, although we're equipped to realize our connection to the complete whole, we can't be the complete whole by ourselves, because our potency and our beauty isn't equal. It's just qualitatively equal, not quantitatively equal.
Yes, you're saying that we are very tiny.
Yes.
Yes. But they say, well, the Brahman does become tiny. But he is Brahman all the same. He is all great, all powerful, all the same. You know what our argument is? Our argument is very simple. If you are the Supreme, how did you come under the influence of illusion? What kind of God are you who comes under the influence of illusion? That means illusion of Maya is more powerful than you, God. That means Maya is God, not you. You see the contradiction? So the fact that, or the assertion that the Supreme Brahman can come under illusion is itself a contradictory thing. You can't have something that is supreme coming under the influence of something that is inferior. You can only have something coming under the influence of something superior. So that means Maya or illusion is superior. So it all ends up with a lot of confusion. The third point. What was the third point? Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Brahman is the impersonal light, is the only reality. The material world is illusion. And they give the example of the rope and the snake. They say sometimes in the dark, you catch hold of a rope and suddenly you think, oh my God, it's a snake. So you mistake a rope for a snake. So in the same way, we mistake this world for reality, although it's an illusion. So that is the analogy or example that they give. So how do Vaishnavas counter that? We counter that by saying, it is indeed a mistake to consider a rope as a snake. But the point is that the rope exists. The mistake is in considering the rope as a snake. In the same way, the material world exists. It is reality. It is true. The only thing is, it is temporary. And to imagine material forms to be eternal, that is the mistake. When we imagine the material body to be ourselves, that is the mistake. That is the illusion. But the fact that this body exists, that is not an illusion. It does exist. Let me give a simple example. Suppose you're dreaming that you're a king or a queen. Now, you wake up, of course, and find out that you're no longer a king or a queen. Now, is it a reality or is it not a reality? Is the dream true or not true?
True.
The fact that you dreamed is true. The fact that there was a dream is true. What you saw in the dream is not true. You get the point? You're not the king, but it is a fact that you dreamt that you were a king. So you can't say it's all illusion. Your thinking of yourself as a king is illusion. But you were dreaming. There is a reality. So in this way, the material world is a reality. But when we dream of things in this material world, I am such and such, and I am this, and this world is such and such, we impose all sorts of false conceptions on the material world. That is wrong. That is false. That's a mistake. And point number 4, when the Supreme Brahman descends into this world as an avatar, as an incarnation, as God descended into this world, the body of that incarnation is also made of matter. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, actually Krishna says very clearly in the 7th chapter, Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhayaha param bhavam ajananto mamavyayam anuttamam. He says, my dear Arjuna, there are some people, abuddhayaha, who are devoid of intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence, abuddhi means without intelligence. So there are some people who are devoid of intelligence who think that actually I was formally, or the absolute truth is formally impersonal, unmanifest, avyaktam. And from this impersonal light, unmanifested form of the Supreme Brahman, vyaktim apannam, that unmanifested has come in the form of a person. Vyakti means a person. It's not just vyakta, which means manifest. It's interesting. So in this world, avyaktam, it is not avyaktam vyaktam apannam, it is avyaktam vyaktim apannam. It is not simply that the philosophy they say is that from the unmanifested became manifest, but they say that from the unmanifest, impersonal, the personality was formed. So that means when Krishna descends into this world, he was formally impersonal, and just for the sake of descending, he assumed a form. But that is a philosophy that is believed by foolish people, Krishna says. Manyante mam abuddhayaha. So those who are foolish think that I was formally impersonal, that I didn't have a form, and now I have assumed a form for the sake of descending into this world. Param bhavam ajananto, they don't know my supreme nature. Mama avyayam anuttamam, they don't know my finest spiritual form, my nature, and that I am imperishable. So in this way, Krishna's form is completely spiritual. There is no trace of any material contamination in him. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna elsewhere keeps repeating the same point. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svamadhisthaya sambhavam yatmamayaya. He says, my dear Arjuna, even though I am unborn, still I appear within this world. And when I appear within the material world, I appear in my original spiritual form. From my original spiritual potency, my form has nothing to do with the Maya or the illusion of this world. So Krishna always has a spiritual body in the spiritual world, and also when he descends into this material world. Krishna is never touched by the material energy. Krishna is always in control of his material energy, whichever does his bidding. So in this way we can understand that the Mayavad philosophy is patently untrue. One of the consequences or corollaries of this philosophy is also when they say that because the impersonal Brahman is without qualities and attributes, there is no variety, there is no variegatedness in the light. Just like in sunlight, there is no variety, right? There is just light. It's all one uniform, undifferentiated light. So they say in the Supreme Brahman, which is just spiritual light, there is no differentiation between things. Like here we see difference. There is a microphone, there is a book, there's a flask, there's a chair, there's a body. There's differences, there's variety. But in the impersonal Brahman, there is no such variety. It's all just undifferentiated light, spiritual light. But of course, they don't realize that this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. There is variety that exists here in matter. There is variety that exists in the spiritual world, in spirit. So when we see a reflection and you see variety there, there will also be variety in the object which is being reflected. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Antavattu phalam teshan tad bhavatyalpamedasam Deva Deva Yajo Yanti Mad Bhakta Yanti Mamapi. He says, Antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedasam. Those who are alpamedha, who are less intelligent, think they worship the demigods. Because the worship of the demigods yields fruits that are only temporary, that are material. Therefore, people who worship the demigods for material benefits are not very intelligent. And they will attain to the planets of the demigods. But my devotees, dear Arjuna, Mad Bhakta Yanti Mamapi, they attain to me, to my abode, my planet. So Srila Prabhupada explains there that just as the demigods have their bodies, they have their abodes. There is Svargaloka, all the demigods have. Brahma has his abode, Indra has his abode, the sun god has his abode. They are all existing, they have their abodes. And these abodes have variety. So similarly, Krishna's abode also has variety, but spiritual variety. In this world you find material variety, in the spiritual world you find spiritual variety. In the Brahma Samhita, Krishna says, Brahma says, Chintamani prakarasadmashu kalpavriksha lakshavriteshu surabhir abhipalayantam Lakshmi sahasrashata sambramasevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So Brahma is saying, I offer my obeisances to the primeval Lord Govinda, who lives in an abode that is full of abodes that are made of transcendental gems. Chintamani prakara sadmashu. Sadmashu refers to homes or houses. Prakara means made of. Chintamani means touchstones. So there are houses in the spiritual world, and they're made of transcendental touchstone, not of brick and mortar, not of wood and steel and so on, but they're made of transcendental spiritual touchstones. Kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu. And that Govinda, that Krishna, is surrounded by hundreds of thousands of wish-fulfilling trees, kalpa vriksha. Whatever you want can be fulfilled by those trees. Go to those trees and say, I want an ice cream, you'll get it. That doesn't happen here. And it's better it doesn't happen, because we'll be in big trouble if that happens. I'll just tell a quick story before I go on, because it's come to mind. One time there was a traveler who was very tired. He came to a tree and he said, I'm so tired, let me rest for the night here. And as soon as he thought, I want to sleep, and I wish I had a nice bed, all of a sudden a beautiful, luxurious bed appeared in front of him. He said, wow, that's cool, he said. That's what you say here, right? It's cool. It's a nice bed that's come up here. So nice to sleep. So he lay down. And as he was laying down, he was thinking, yeah, actually I'm also hungry. I wish I had a nice feast. And lo and behold, a nice feast manifested in front of him. And then he had a good feast. And then he was thinking, but it's getting dark. And this is the edge of the forest. And what if a tiger comes here and eats me? And what happened? The tiger came and ate him. So that was a wish-fulfilling tree of this material world. So very dangerous to have such trees here. So don't regret the fact that you don't have them here. But in the spiritual world, there are such wish-fulfilling trees. Surabhir abhipalayantam, and Govinda is engaging, he has activities, he engages in herding the cows. So there are cows there. There are cowherd boys and cowherd men and cowherd maidens who are gopis. There are trees, there are plants, there are homes, there is so much variety there. So therefore this spiritual world is full of transcendental variety and excitement and adventure. And it's only when one follows in the footsteps of great devotees like Brahma that these things will be revealed to us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to reveal that spiritual world to us, specifically Goloka Vrindavan, which Brahma has been describing. So by joining the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this Krishna consciousness movement, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and following the other rules and regulations, we will also one day be able to enter into that transcendental, wonderful abode and participate with Krishna and his associates in those extremely wondrous and blissful pastimes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. But I'm not letting you go so easily. I'm going to ask you to tell me the 4 points. What are the 4 tenets of Mayavad? Number 1. Please raise your hand. Yes.
God is impersonal light, spiritual light.
Yes, God is impersonal light. So, what about that? What is it that he doesn't have? Form, qualities, attributes, activities. So the first point is God is impersonal, spiritual light. Number 2, we are all God. Actually, by the way, all it needed was an apostrophe and S and it would have been correct. We are gods. Not G-O-D-S, but just put an apostrophe. Yes? After D, what does it become? We are gods. That means we are property of God. That's all you need. Just put a little apostrophe. So anyway, that's the second point. We are all God and we are under the influence of Maya or illusion, and
if you remove this illusion, will become God.
And if you remove this illusion, you are already God, you realize you're God. How do you remove that illusion? By meditation, cultivating speculative knowledge and austerity and so on. That's point number 2. Point number 3, this material world is illusion. It doesn't exist. It's false. Only the impersonal spiritual light is reality. It's point number 3. Point number 4.
When God descends, he has material body.
When God descends here as his avatars, his body is material, made of Maya. So he is also under the influence of illusion. So these are the 4 points. Now, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line refutations of each of these 4. The first point, that God is only impersonal light. Who would like to refute it very briefly? You'll get some extra Mahaprasad if you do. Yes.
In this world, we have form and formlessness, so form and formlessness must also exist in the Supreme Heart.
And which is superior?
The form is superior
Because?
Formlessness emanates from form.
Yes, formlessness emanates from form. Yes? So this is in brief one refutation of that. Okay, the second point, that we are God and we are now under the influence of illusion. By removing this illusion, we once again become God. How do you refute that very briefly?
We are not God. That's why we are under the influence of Maya. We
Yes.
can't be God. As we are under influence of Maya, so that's the refutation.
Okay. A little more specifically?
God is supreme and can't be inferior to Maya.
Sorry?
God is more supreme and cannot be inferior to Maya.
Yes, if God is supreme, how come he is under the influence of Maya? That means that illusion is more powerful than God. That means illusion is God. It doesn't make sense? Yes? Okay, that's point number 2. Refutation for point number 3, which is that this material world is false.
This is not false, but this is a temporary. This is temporary, not false.
Okay, this material world is real, but it's temporary. And the forms made of matter are ever changing. And when we identify with them and think that they are real, then that is illusion. But the world is not an illusion, it exists. What was the example that they give? A rope and the snake. And what do we say?
Both exist. Rope and snake are real.
Yes, it is a fact that we mistook the rope for a snake, but the rope exists. The rope is not false. Snake also exists somewhere else. But the rope is real. So similarly, this material world is real. We may imagine this material world to be something that it is not. That's a different question. But the world exists. And the fourth point? What is the fourth point? The avatars made of matter. How do we refute that? Sorry? From the Mataji's side, anyone? Okay, from here?
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Avyakti-ma-panya.
Yes.
The people think that, some people think that I was first formless and then came into form. But that is not true. They do not know my superior higher nature.
Wonderful. And these people are very intelligent, or what are they? What does Krishna say? Abudhaya, which means they're not intelligent. So they think, Krishna says wrongly, that I was formerly impersonal and then I assumed the form. But they are unintelligent, therefore they don't know the truth. And as far as variegatedness of the spiritual world is concerned, because Prabhupada does talk of variety in the spiritual world here in the purport, so I included this. What is the evidence of variegatedness, of variety in the spiritual world? Yes.
We are having material world is full of variegatedness, and this material world is the image of the spiritual world. So
Reflection.
If the spiritual world is having variegatedness, we can't have it material.
Yes. We see variety here in this material world. According to Bhagavad Gita, the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Therefore, the spiritual world must also have variety. And also the great devotees and saints have, with their deep realization of the spiritual world, describe to us what the spiritual world looks like. Even the Srimad Bhagavatam has wonderful descriptions of Vaikuntha Loka and what goes on there, the birds, the trees, the residents, the vehicles in which they travel, their clothing and everything, their activities, it's all described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So not only must we know what the tenets of the Mayavad philosophy are, we must also know, at least in brief, how to refute them. And we must be very cautious that we don't go here and there listening to all sorts of spiritual lectures because they appear to be similar to what we've been hearing in Radha Landaneshwar temple. It may appear to be similar, but only superficially so. You probe a little deeper and you'll see all sorts of Mayavad tumbling out of the closet. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned us to be careful. Okay, thank you very much. Shri Caitanya-caritamrta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hare Krishna. Thank you.